What is going on, YouTube? It is Primitive here, and today I'm going to be bringing you the finals of the locals that happened here yesterday at Rocky Mountain Collectibles. This is going to be between myself on the right. I will be playing Gabumon. Now, this is not the ancient version that I had posted on the channel earlier this week. This is more so the what people call the Rookie Rush variant, even though that makes no sense because there are less rookies in this build than the ancient version. But either way, this deck is ancientless, so we are going to have a whole different dynamic here. My opponent's going to go ahead and play a Strabi to match my Strabi, but they do whiff, and then going to go straight into the Azulongmon, putting me at 1, which is pretty annoying because I'd prefer to have some more memory than that. But I am just going to play the Gabumon to search. I do hit the mat, so we are getting started here. I do have multiple rookies on board, but they are all slightly shut down just because the Azulongmon, I can swing in and get multiple checks, but something's going to get blocked for free, and I don't know how much I really want to just commit my rookies going in there quite yet. I'm going to Digivolve. I have the Strabimon in raising, which is a bit unfortunate because we do know that I just got the mat, so I prefer to have a Gabumon in hand to go to raising. So I probably could have considered saving that Gabumon that I played to get the mat last turn to raise, but if I didn't play that, then I wouldn't have gotten the mat in the first place, so just a little bit unfortunate that I had to Digivolve the Strabimon instead of a Gabumon, but I will still get a Digimon in there, get that cycle, and I can get another rookie on board and potentially start to try and go in for swings later. I could potentially play the mat out this turn, and then I could have went for next turn potentially going into Bond, but going into Davis will help. It makes it so I can't be choked anymore like how my opponent choked me with the Azulongmon, and I was able to search out. I did whiff, but that is alright. Having the Tamer out and having the Memory Tamer is going to be pretty important. So my opponent looks like they're considering swinging in with their Tobiumon. They are going to start off with Digivolving into a Lobomon in raising, so that's one less Lobomon that I'm going to have to worry about in this match, but my opponent doesn't have any Tamers out as it is. Going to play the Gomamon out since I'm going to go to 3 anyway. They are starting to get a lot of checks on board, which is unfortunate because I'm not going to really be able to stop it. I only have 3 security left to my opponent's 4 Digimon coming out next turn, and having it so that they have 4 checks means that I'm probably either going to have to get lucky with a Hammer Spark to end their turn, or I'll have to go and hit a Kikaitis Breath to bounce one of them back. My opponent right here realizes that they should have played the Hammer Spark earlier to play around the my own Hammer Spark, but didn't matter because I didn't hit it anyway. Could have gotten punished by that, but unfortunate that didn't have the security that I needed. So gonna have my opponent be going second game 2. This is something that you'll see in most matchups. Pretty much every single deck in this metagame is gonna want to be going second. Going first is usually gonna be a slight hindrance, especially with Gabumon, because you're pretty much always gonna be putting your opponent at 3, whether you play a Gabumon, a Strabimon, or a Tamer. So having the opponent go first does give me enough memory to where I can play this out and give them minimal memory. They are going to bring out the Davis, so they won't be able to get choked anymore, but now I'm at a nice 3 memory, which means that I can play most of my rookies for free here. Gonna play the Strabimon and search out for a Tamer. I do hit the mat, so I can go ahead and just put my opponent at 3, play the mat out, and leaving the Gabumon is nice because now I can just straight up promote next turn, get the draw 1, gain 1 from the mat. But then my opponent Digivolves into Hexeblaumon in the raising, which is pretty scary because that can shut off a lot, so I'm gonna have to play around it here. I do decide to promote anyway to get the draw, and I can start swinging in here. I know that my opponent's security is not going to be the strongest. I really am only worried about potentially Hammer Spark coming out, but there aren't any other crazy options coming, so I can just swing those in. Both those Digimon are going to be relatively useless once the Hexeblaumon comes out because they're not going to be able to attack. And now I'm just going to set up a Howling Memory boost so that way I can gain some more memory in the future turns and potentially use that to go into like a Lobomon or something, or just whatever I need. My opponent swings. I thought it was 2 checks, but it was jamming, so I just misheard them, but they are going to swing anyway. Get me down to 3 checks, so that is a little bit scary because I'm probably going to have to go into Bond at some point here soon with these 2 Gabumons on board, and if I do that, it's going to put me down to 1 security, and my opponent does have a Tamer on board, so I have to make sure I don't go down to 0 security, so that way my opponent doesn't be able to just swing in with a Tamer. But they do have multiple Digimon on board, which is going to be a little bit scary here. I can go straight into the Bond if I want to, but I have to be worried about swinging into things like Hammer Spark. But I can play around this by going into the Bond, swinging into the Hexeblaumon, and then bottom decking the Madoki Betamon here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just making sure that the Hexeblaumon didn't have any buffs there. I'm going to swing, unsuspend. My opponent didn't block there, which was a little bit of a mistake because now I just go ahead and get to bottom deck it for free instead of having to target the Hexeblaumon. Gonna go ahead and use my Howling Memory Boost here now to go up to 2, so that way I can play around the Hammer Spark if I do hit it, but I don't hit it, so I can go in for a game and just use that 2 memory I gained to go into a Lobomon and swing in there. Again, my opponent is going to correctly choose to go second, so I'm gonna be having to go first, put them at 3 with the Strawby, but I do get to hit the Matt off of there, so I am guaranteed to hit Matt. Speaking of Matt, there comes Matt, the tournament organizer, who just flipped over my Upamon for some reason. My opponent's going to play the Sorajo, which is a card that is kind of annoying because I am going to want to hard play things quite often with this deck, so I just swing in with the Strawbymon and kind of hoping that it does go down, so that way my opponent doesn't get the Sorajo boost there. They are going to play the Madoki Betamon, which again is going to be very annoying for me because it shuts down my Hammer Sparks as well as my memory boost when those do come out, but I can put them at 2. They're not going to gain any memory because I do have the Upamon under the Gabumon there, and so I put them at minimal memory. They can't really do too much. They can go up into an ultimate if they do choose, so they're going to play a couple champions searching out for what they want, and then I do believe they just go into the Majiramon and raising. Yep, we are going to see the Majiramon there. Now I'm gonna have to start playing around this. I don't necessarily want to go into Bond right now. It would be nice, but I can't really go in for game if I really wanted to, so I'm gonna go into the Grizzlymon. This play is really good because if my opponent goes into Azulongmon off of the Majiramon, then they won't be able to gain the memory off of my Grizzly because there are 2 sources and they'll only be able to trash the 1, and then I'll be able to play the Howling Memory Boost, putting my opponent at 2 and again denying them the Sorajo memory. Now they could decide to swing in if they wanted to and use the Sorajo to trash the bottom 2 sources, but we're gonna have to see what they choose to go for here. They can't really go into any of their megas here without passing me up to 3, and if they want to promote the Majiramon, then they will be in a little bit of trouble because I could just get rid of it with something like a Kaitis Breath, or even if they don't Digivolve on top of it, it can just get bottom decked by the Bond, so they're gonna go ahead and make the correct play and not promote. They are going to go ahead and go Azulong in the raising, which is a little bit interesting because they aren't going to be able to get the effect off of it, but if I keep just choking them here, then they aren't going to be able to go into Azulong and have it still be their turn, so they might know that I am playing the 4 Kakaitis Breath in my deck at this point of the tournament, and if they do, then they would be able to just play around that a little bit by going into Azulong here. Now, they're not going to be able to gain security checks just yet, just because I do have sources on pretty much everything. But now swinging in, they will be able to target the Strawbymon, which is a little bit interesting of a target. Wanted to get Digimon off the board, and then using the Sorajo to trash the sources of my Grizzlymon, so that way they can get a draw from the Upamon there. But not going for security checks, so not as crazy. Gonna go for the Majiramon to trash the source from my Grizzlymon, so I am gonna go ahead and just be down security checks. We are talking right here. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but gonna go ahead and trash that Strawbymon there. It is the top and the bottom source, so it doesn't really matter there. But gonna go into the Hexeblaumon. Now that's super annoying because I can't do anything with my Grizzlymon now, and if my opponent does have the Azulong, then they can just go in for a lot of checks, especially with the Majiramon letting them be able to unsuspend. Now obviously that's not something that I can let happen, or I am just gonna lose the game here, so I am gonna have to go ahead, after I do a little bit of thinking, I know that I'm gonna have to commit the Kakaitis Breath to bounce it back into hand. I just decide to play the Mat out first, so that way I can get extra memory and extra draws next turn, so that way when I go out with my Gabumon, I can gain 2 memory, and then on top of the Howling Memory Boost, I'll have enough memory to go into Bond, as well as 2 Tamers, or 2 Hybrids on top of my Tamers, so I can pretty much guarantee to go for game. So my opponent's going to swing, unsuspend, swing once again. I can't block because of the Hexeblaum's effect, but it's no big deal because what's really going to be needed is going into the Bond next turn, and then potentially some Hybrids, so my opponent's going to have to start building up. They go into the Kakumon. They have so much memory to work with that they can really do anything, but I didn't have too much of an option. I obviously could have put them at 3 less if I didn't play the Mat, but like I said, I have pretty high confidence that I'm going to be able to make it into this next turn, and by playing the extra Mat, I am going to be able to have the memory to pretty much guaranteed to go into game no matter what, even if I do hit some Hammer Sparks from my opponent's security. So they're going to go ahead and just start building up into the raising. They're going to get another Azulongmon out, and then they just play the Hexeblaumon out because we were talking this last turn while my opponent was playing that he said, I just lose next turn because of the bond, which is correct. I do forget to trash my top 2 security from this bond here because my opponent and I were just talking about how he was saying that he has no outs for bond. So I did play it, I did forget, but we do know that the game is over here. I have way too many checks. Even swinging over the Hexeblaumon, I have more than enough swings to go in for game there. I did have to swing into the Hexeblaumon in case I did swing into triple Hammer Spark, which, thinking about it, I don't think is going to matter because I did have the Howling Memory Boost on board, so I would have been able to just go for game. But that is going to seal this up. I will take this 2-1, very close. That first game, I did get pretty much wrecked by the Rookie Rush. The blockers in this matchup are super impactful since I can't get those rookies in there and get those early checks so that I can end with bond. But with that being said, if you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe because I'm going to have all kinds of BT6 content coming for you. I hope you have a great day. Peace out.